some more that I took away from it was the offensive line and the development that Ben Arbuckle talked about. He talked about how when he came in, he knew what he was getting. He knew that there was going to be some things to work on, but when he stepped in here, it was so much better than what he thought it would be. Talking about this offensive line, knowing that it's a main focus in the offseason. And that's what Ben Arbuckle knew was going to be the case when he first came in. He knew what Oklahoma was a season ago, and an atrocious offensive line, and that happened for many reasons. But he noted how they watched. He said, "I don't know this for certain because I don't have the data to back it up, but I'd be willing to bet that as much as the offensive line was in and studying film, as much as the offensive line was together watching film and building up a chemistry together." He said, I think that they probably watched more film than any other position group in this building. And he said that they were there all the time. They were there watching film more than just about, he thinks, more than any other position group. That is the group that you need the most chemistry. You need a lot of chemistry between a quarterback, receivers, quarterback, running backs, running back, receivers, not so much, but you still need some there. Really, everybody on the team needs some chemistry, right? But nobody needs, and I'm just talking one core group, nobody really needs more chemistry and more understanding and more of a relationship than the offensive line themselves, just in their own group themselves. Of course, the offensive line and the quarterback also need that connection, because I just posted this on social media. I was watching some Baker Mayfield. I don't even remember which game it was. It was one of the games. It just popped up, and I was like, I'm going to watch this while I'm cooking. So I'm cooking dinner last night and had that going and watching it. And I'm like, man, Baker was phenomenal. And I don't want to take anything away from, I'm not ever going to take anything from his game. I think Baker's like one of my all-time favorites, just because I have so many great memories with him. Everybody does from Oklahoma, even outside of Oklahoma. He's a great player. That offensive line was amazing for him. And I'm not trying to take anything away from that offensive line at all, because they were phenomenal. They knew what they were doing, and they had such a chemistry with Baker Mayfield that it wasn't even necessarily that the offensive line would be blocking for him so well that he just had all the time in the world back there. He would have to get out of the pocket, but usually he is keeping his eyes downfield, knowing that there's a receiver that's working on something, and try to position himself in a certain pocket that helps the offensive line. And that was something that, man, I didn't really recognize it as much back then whenever he was playing as I do now. And now I started going back and watching other things. Baker was one of the best at sitting in there with that chemistry with his offensive line, which is what I'm talking about here. With the chemistry of the offensive line, but then also with the quarterback. Baker had that kind of chemistry where he was able to position himself to set offensive linemen up for a block. A defender is coming from this way, so he positions himself. There's an offensive line right here. He positions himself around him to put that offensive lineman in the right position. That's something, I mean, man, that talk about chemistry and IQ on the field. I mean, there was so much back then. I believe that we could see similar things than that. I don't know if John Mateer is going to have that kind of IQ. I think looking back at Baker, he had a higher IQ than I ever gave him credit for when I was watching him live. And it really showed. Of course, a lot of that was toughness and grit, but that kind of stuff is just next level. Obviously, that's why he went number 1 overall. And so that's the kind of stuff that extending the play is more than just sitting in the pocket, more than relying on your offensive line. But anyways, getting back to what Ben Arbuckle was talking about, he really wants to. He focused in. He was talking a little bit kind of about their mental sharpness, their mental toughness, their physical readiness. He seems like everybody is really getting strengthened up and ready for this upcoming season. That offensive line as a whole seems really strengthened as a group, and heading into specifically into that week 2 matchup is obviously the big one against Michigan.